Hello and welcome to another episode of Who Knew in the Moment, the podcast. I'm your host, Phil Friedrich, and today I'm honored to have Eddie Shannon with me. Eddie is an assistant men's basketball coach at South Carolina, and one of the things I think you're going to hear in his journey is how sometimes adversity can lead to the next opportunity. And so, Eddie, thanks so much for being on today.
Absolutely, and thank you for having me, and I'm thrilled to be here.
Yes. So to start your journey, you grew up in Riviera Beach, Florida, and at a young age, really started to play basketball, being near parks and outdoors. So talk a little about, young Eddie growing up there and, what made you fall in love with basketball?
Well, man, Riviera Beach, that's my stomping ground. I'm very proud of where I'm from. I'm disappointed that I don't get back there as often as I should. But sports where I'm from, and especially that particular area, is that's your way out, so to speak. If you're good at it. I mean, there's obviously other avenues, but that was a way of life for us, especially as kids. We didn't have social media and some of the things that kids gravitate to nowadays are things, especially in the summertime, which it is now. Like when the sun comes up, we're outside, we're playing, whether it's football, baseball, basketball, whatever it was. We were riding bikes, whatever it was we were doing, we were always outside. And, you know, um, we gravitated towards sports. And, I played all three. I played baseball, I played football, I played basketball. And my best sport was probably baseball. But I love basketball the most, and that's what got me into sports. And then obviously at some point you realize, hey, I'm a little bit better than most, and so then you kind of go in that path.
Yeah. Now, you talk about it's kind of a way out. It's a way to a different opportunity. And I think oftentimes people can see that in you at a certain point, right? You're hanging out with older folks and they go, man, Eddie's just got something a little bit different than, the other kids. And so maybe talk about, people seeing something in you even before Eddie realized, hey, I'm just a little bit quicker. I'm just, a little bit better. I'm whatever it might be.
Yeah, so I was normally the around the smallest, or if not the smallest,
Yeah.
one of the smaller guys in our group or somewhere around there. But I was always like the fastest or the quickest or one of the
Yeah.
and I was a superior athlete, even though I was smaller in stature than most of my friends. Coming up, I was a far better athlete, and you could kind of see that. And then people would, and there's certain things that like you said, like the name of this show, right? You don't realize it when it's happening, but you look back and you're like, yeah, I was really doing that. I'd be at the park all the time, and but sometimes by myself. I look back, then I didn't, you don't think about it. I'm just up here, and sometimes you didn't have a basketball. So I, maybe grab cans from, because it was a big park, and then you had, a basketball, for a basketball court, but it was a big park. You play football, play different sports. I would grab anything, just shoot it at the hoop, you
Yeah.
know. And what I learned, what I now know, that I had a love for it, right? I had a different type of love for it because a lot of kids, and including my friends, like they didn't do that.
Right.
But that was the love that I had for it. And again, you don't realize it then, but actually that's your passion coming out.
I love it. Now, as you're getting older, you're continuing to play multiple sports, and then in middle school, you had a little bit of an injury, an incident, and that sidelines you for a period of time. So, one, talk a little bit about what happened, but two, talk about if you reflect back on it, just I mean, that's a really tough time for anyone, but especially in those you know 12 to 14-year-old years of like, man, I'm missing the thing I love. I'm not getting to hang out with my friends. Talk a little bit about going through that.
Well, so this was one of those things where we were just outside, and this actually happened the morning before catching the bus to school, to middle school. So we were just playing, and it's something that we did a million times before. Like it's maybe four or five guys on one side, four or five guys on my side, and we got trees, and we're in that same park I'm talking about. We got trees, we got different things that you can hop behind. So we're just throwing rocks at each other, right? I happen to get hit in the eye with that one. So you think nothing of it other than my eye hurts, it's
Right.
swollen. So I ended up not going to school that day. But I had a football game that night. And me, I don't like missing sports activities or especially games. And,
Yeah.
and I pride myself, even in my career, I missed one game as a pro in
Mm.
11 years. I missed one game and I literally got food poisoning the from pregame meal. And
Wow.
that's the reason I didn't play. Um, but I didn't want to miss the game. So I go and I play in the game. I'm icing all day, and all that. It's my eyes red and blood, bloodshot and all that. I don't understand it. I'm a kid. I just know I got hit in the eye, so obviously it should be bloodshot, swollen. The swelling went down a little bit, and I don't know how I found an eye patch. I do not know how I found it, but I found one, and I went to the game and I played in it with an eye patch over my eye to hide the swellingness and the way it looked. But obviously you show your friends. I think I was 12, 13 years old, something like that.
Yeah.
And so I play in the game. I used to score a touchdown. I play receiver. I score a touchdown in the game, right? Unbeknownst to me, so I go to school the next day, all of that stuff, and then just
Yeah.
I started just having pains in my eye and things like that. So, long story short, what happened was because I played in that game and I was doing a lot of running and tackling and all of that stuff, and during that process, I guess I developed a blood clot because I didn't do what normal people do. If you get hit in the eye, you go lay down and you rest it off, and
Right.
I didn't do that. So, but that prompted a first surgery. I had to get a blood clot removed.
Wow.
That wasn't so successful to where my vision didn't completely come back because all of the blood, I guess, was not cleared out. So the blood that was left in there, it got infected. So then the next surgery was I had to get a cataract removed.
Yeah.
I'm 13 now. At 13 years old, you don't have cataracts.
Right.
That's for the elderly. But I had a cataract removed, so and during that time, because when I'm having these surgeries, I got to sit out from sports, right? And I
Right.
played three sports. There wasn't a time where I wasn't practicing for something.
Yeah.
And that was very annoying for me. So that last time when they asked me like how I felt and how was my vision and I would just say I'm okay, I'm good, but my vision was blurry in my right eye.
Yeah.
It never since I had that first surgery, my vision never came completely back. I could see if you were in front of me, I could see you, right? If you were moving your hands, I could see those things. If you held up two fingers, I could see that you had your hand up, but I couldn't tell you if you had one, two, three. I could guess, but so that's the best that my vision had gotten to. And then I guess I'll go along here. It wasn't until the summer before my senior year at Florida
Yeah.
I started having pains. And then my eyes started looking like I had the pink eye. And so I had to, obviously I started getting questioned like, hey, well, your eye okay,
Yeah.
and but they never knew. They didn't know in high school,
Yeah.
no in college. When I first take the physical, I would tell them, hey, I had eye surgery 6 months ago. I should get my vision back. So then they just wouldn't even test my right eye. Telling you, and that happened, and you know, in the moment, I'm glad they did it because I didn't want to go through any more stuff with the eye.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, wish they did
Yeah.
because then maybe the problem could have got completely corrected. I don't know, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, so to talk about it, so we're going through this, and a person might say, "Oh gosh, well, was that the end of sports for Eddie?" Well, no. Not only was it not the end, it's really the beginning of what becomes an amazing career. So, as you're playing at Cardinal Newman, you end up being the player of the year for the state. And when you're the player of the year in Florida, you get some opportunities. And so, as you're looking at different universities to go, originally you commit to Arizona. So, talk a little bit about the high school years, originally committing to Arizona, and then, as you alluded to, eventually making that switch to the hometown team.
Yeah, you did your research.
Hey,
So
hey, if I'm gonna have you on, I gotta do it.
yeah, so I was well recruited coming out of high school. I
Yeah,
had probably could name more schools that didn't recruit me than I could, than anything. Um, I was one that I didn't enjoy the recruiting process because I'm an introvert and I don't want to go through all that stuff. I like to have my decisions made and
yep,
then I could just play free. So I wanted to get that stuff over quickly. So I was only going to take two visits, Arizona, and Florida. Arizona was first. Now I tell you, man, they did a terrific job with me. The late Lute Olson was awesome. Him and Jesse Evans recruited me. And I'll never forget, Lute was, he had a stature about him, on top of, him being a successful coach. He
yeah.
had the all white hair, about 6'4", 6'5". So he was, I mean, he literally came, they came to the school. I don't know if it was legal or illegal then, but they walked me to every single one of my classes.
Wow.
They would wait in the hallway. When I come out of class, they walk and talk with me. So obviously they did a home visit and all that, and then I went out. Damon Stoudemire was my host on my visit. I had a great time. Mike Dickerson, um, Miles Simon, Reggie Geary, Joe Blair, all those guys. I had a tremendous time at Arizona. But I went by myself. I was raised by my grandparents and obviously they couldn't take that trip. My high school, I can't remember why he didn't go because when we still are very close.
Yeah.
Um, I can't remember why he didn't go, but needless to say, end of the visit, I had such a great time. I mean, they're painting me as the next Damon Stoudemire. I did know Mike Bibby had already committed. He was a year behind me, but he had already committed, so I knew that. Um, so I commit on the visit. I get back to Florida, um, and my high school coach is like, "What? You committed?" Now he liked Arizona too. I mean, but he was like, you haven't seen Florida. You don't know what they have to offer." And
Yeah.
both schools were coming off of Final Four runs. They were in the Final Four the same year.
Yeah.
They they both had really good point guards. Damon Stoudemire for Arizona and Dan Cross for Florida.
Yeah.
Um, so I was like, you know what? I'll listen to him. And I didn't decommit. I know I didn't decommit. But then I ended up taking the visit to Florida.
Yeah.
And I don't know anything about visits, but anytime you're going to visit, there's really going to be a place you don't like.
Yeah. Right.
You're only going to see the great things about the campus, the university, the
Yeah.
places to eat. They're only going to put you in, places that you're going to see great things.
Absolutely.
Went to Florida, had a great time. I think the biggest thing then was it took me 3 hours. Well, they flew down in a private jet to get me from Florida.
Yeah.
So we flew, but I knew it was only a 3 hour car ride from my home to Gainesville.
Yeah.
Now you got to have connecting flights to get to Arizona,
Yeah.
and there's a time difference. So I think that ultimately played into the final decision to decommit from Arizona and to go to Florida. And most people don't know this, and it's crazy. Damon Stoudemire, the first time I saw him, well, not the first time because we played them when I was at Canisius and he was at Pacific, but maybe about a couple years ago when I saw him, one of the things he jokes with people about is he'll say, "I got a funny Eddie Shannon story to tell you." Well, it's not really a funny story, but it's a lot of people don't know that when I decommitted from Arizona, that led to Jason Terry being able to, because he originally had committed to Washington,
Got it.
right? So I say, man, well, maybe I should have stayed committed if I could have had his career. You know, they won a national championship. So, but yeah, that was that's the story behind that stuff. And I probably honestly should have took maybe one or two more visits too, just to get a taste of some because I was heavily recruited by some really, really good schools.
Yeah.
Um, that I probably could have played for too.
Well, Jason Terry, if you're listening, you said Eddie a check for, the royalties, the gift of decommitting and going to Florida. No.
I think I would have happily traded places with him. No, but no, that's not to say I had a great time at Florida and I enjoyed my career. We didn't win as much as I would have liked to win or as much as they're winning now or towards the end of my career and what Billy had built. I
Yep.
had a great time and I wouldn't change that for anything. My journey is my journey, and somebody else's journey is their journey.
Well, so talk about it. You go to Florida, and Billy Donovan is not the head coach yet, but within your tenure there, the transition happens. So you're getting, young head coach, it's not necessarily the person that you had originally committed to. But talk a little bit about, the journey within Florida. And I mean, you guys did make a Sweet 16 run. So,
Yeah.
yeah, once again, it's not as if this is a bottom feeder program, right? I mean, it just didn't have a national championship and they've won a few of those recently. So, talk a little bit about, your journey and just kind of the coaching transition and, your time there.
Yeah, I think overall for me is I'm not a person that kind of if you watch some of these podcasts now, guys over exaggerate who they really were as
Mm.
players. I kind of knew who I was. I knew I was okay. At best, I my time there was great. I think my I was a 4-year starter.
Yeah.
Um, and we didn't win much. I had a lot to learn, especially at the point guard position and especially um, just about like I took basketball serious, like a real seriousness, but you don't take in effect some of the things outside of the actual game that you have to take serious that prepares you for the games.
Yeah.
And that's a step that I needed to take, especially my first year. And with the transition from Coach Kruger to Coach Donovan, I think I learned that from Billy. Because when he came in, the Billy you know now was not the Billy that I met. But he had to be that way.
Yeah.
He had to be that way. He was hard nosed and he could coach in a way then that you can't really coach now. He can get on you can get on guys, you can get in their face, you can coach guys up and coach them hard.
Yep.
And I came in with a recruiting class of six. It was only two of us that finished with Billy.
Yeah.
Guys got out of there right away because Billy has a greatness about him, and from that greatness comes how he prepares and how he's going to prepare you. And if you weren't ready for that, that was going to be, you were going to stick out like a sore
Yep.
So, or it just wasn't a fit
Yeah.
for guys. So, that happened. And, again, like I came in a class of six, two of us finished. I learned so much from Billy and his staff, which included Donnie Jones, who's the coach at Stetson right now and was the head coach at UCF, John Pelfrey, who's head coach at Arkansas, who's now at Tennessee Tech, and Anthony Grant, who's the head coach at Dayton, was also at Alabama and VCU. But the way that they coached and the way that you learned the game and you learned about life from those guys, it prepared me for where I am today. But that did not come without making changes.
Yeah.
Like they came at us hard and they came at me. I was a point guard.
Right.
They came at me hard and they knew that in order to take Florida to a different place in basketball because it's already a football school and still is
Right.
a football school, you know.
Yeah.
Um, in order to take Florida to a different place, they had to change the mentality throughout the entire program of what it was going to be what it was going to be about on a day in and day out basis. And man, I'm so thankful that I learned from those guys and that I had a chance to be, you know, on their journeys because they had a journey and we crossed paths and we still all keep in touch and I'm very, very thankful. But I had a great time at Florida. The one thing I wish we could have won more
Yeah.
during the time. But I'm happy, how things turned out and I wouldn't trade my decision for anything.
I love it. Now, you talked about coaching styles, right? And I mean, you played professionally for what, 10 years, 11 years. You played in high school, you played college, now you're coaching. You've seen a lot of different coaching styles. And I think one of the hard elements is, from an outside perspective, people will say, "Oh, that coach coaches the wrong way," or "Oh, they're too hard," or whatever it is. And one thing that I've always felt like is if you go watch a coach practice, you watch him on the sidelines. Like when I commit to the school, I know exactly how this coach coaches, right? It's not like they put on a show for 2 days while I'm there and then, they revert back to some other style. And I think so frequently if you're just outside perspective looking at it, you say, man, that guy's really tough on a person. But I think when you're the player, it's like, for me personally, I always enjoyed having a coach that would call me out for things, right? Like I just perform better that way. It's like, hey, I like to know when I messed up so that way I can fix it. And there's a lot of players that when they become the focal point of the coach, they start to crumble. You can see them break down, lose confidence. And I think sometimes the coach gets the bad rap for it, right? But in my opinion, it's like I think you as a player need to know what environment is going to foster the best out of me, right? If I can't handle a coach like that, well, then I shouldn't play for Billy Donovan, right? Or, at that time, right? If I can handle it, then this might be the way that I get the best results because he's going to hold me accountable. So, talk a little bit about that for you with either coaches you played for or now as you're coaching, kind of how you treat that with different players.
Well, I think, just coaching and playing, I think what I've learned is, coaching is more about culture than
Mm,
anything.
yeah.
I think if you coach in a way that you're creating culture, I think you'll get guys, your team, those guys will buy into everything that you say,
Yeah.
right, wrong, or indifferent. And part of that is you have to learn them in a way that you got to know, okay, who can I get on in front of the group and they can take it and they can respond?
Yep.
Who can I do that with? Who do I need to bring into the office so they need that relationship, they need that bond, they need to feel like I care in a different way than somebody else might need it. And
Yep.
some of it is by, guys learn from who they've grown up being coached by. And it's once they get to us, we have to figure those things out, and some guys are easy to figure out,
Yeah.
but I've never been a proponent, and I was able to take it. And again, I was able to take it because when I played, the guys that I grew up that coached me, they were hard-nosed dudes, and you're gonna get called out. That's
Yep.
just happening. Everybody, there is
Yep.
no coaching style.
Right.
It's I'm raising you. So learning those guys in that way and then being able to create that culture will allow you to hold them accountable in a way that you can that can only make your team better.
Yep.
But if you don't know those things, if you don't know your team and you don't know guys that way and you call a guy out in front of the group, because some guys have group behavior.
Yep.
Some guys, when they're in a group, they act like this. When they're alone or by themselves, they're a completely different person.
Yep.
Um, but because you don't want guys shutting down,
Yeah.
not, because you're getting on them, because it's the group versus if you pull them to the side or something like that. And it's just, again, I know like the old school coaches don't believe in that. They're like,
Right.
we're not doing that. But that's just where it is. It's you have to adapt to what's happening with sports and all
Yep.
of that and figure guys out. I've never been a proponent myself. I'm not a yeller and a screamer. I,
Yeah.
f- I don't think you get anything accomplished that way. Like just because you yell at somebody doesn't mean they're going to do it better.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
how can I teach you in a way that you can consistently do what I'm asking you to do? And I'm not asking you to do anything that I know you can't do. Right?
Yep.
It's simple. Can you run from this block to that block? Can you talk to your teammate when
Yeah.
this those are the things that I'm going to talk to you about and teach you because we're only going to do the things that you're capable of doing. I'm not going to get on you for something that I don't think you can do.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that I think is kind of what you were alluding to there when you talk about team culture, team chemistry is, well, man, am I raising up leaders that I don't have to do that all the time, right? When our one or two best players, our one or two leaders, doesn't even have to be the most skilled or highest point scorers, right? But when they'll call out a guy because they saw it, it's like then we can have culture, right? Because if it's always coach to player, it seems like there's this divide, right? But real team chemistry comes when you've got those one or two guys who they'll step up, right? Once they see it in someone else, they go, hey, no, that's not how we do this, right? That's not how we handle this around here. I think that adds a lot of value.
Those have been our best teams. Our best teams are have been our teams that they police each other.
Mhm.
We don't have to say one word, and it goes from the guy that's averaging 20 points to the guy that doesn't barely plays.
Yep.
They That culture is everyone has a voice, and in order for us to win, we got to all be on the same page, whether the coaches are in the room or not.
Yep.
And those have been our best teams.
I love it. I love it. So, as you're progressing through, like you mentioned, the coaching staff doesn't even know about the site, right? I mean, you started for 3 years at this point, and this has not ever come up. But your senior year, you end up getting a Courage Award because of the fact that, man, you started for 4 years at the highest level of basketball, and were losing sight in an eye or had lost sight in one of your eyes. So, for you at this point, your skill is there, but is there any part of you that's thinking, well, maybe I don't go play overseas, or did you just know, hey, my next progression is I want to go play professionally?
Nah, that was never not playing was never in my peripheral.
Yeah.
No pun intended. uh, um, I remember when I was about to have the surgery that would, obviously make me go completely blind. Billy brought me into his office and he was like, "Listen, you have your scholarship no matter what. If you decide that you don't want to do this, you know, you can finish school. I'll make sure it's paid for." I was like, "Coach, that's never even crossed my mind
Yeah.
mainly because I've already been playing this way. Now, I
Right.
don't know if that would have been, I do know what it would have been if I had just suddenly went blind. I do know the competitor in me would have still been a player. Now,
Yep.
the adjustment now would have been much different
Yep.
because the way it happened, there was no adjustment. It's just,
Yeah.
okay, now the world knows.
Right.
That was that was the only adjustment. My goals, my nothing changed as far as my vision of me as a professional athlete. As a matter of fact, I've said to myself, like, man, if I was born maybe 25 years later, they'd probably be looking for me on NBA teams, because everybody's looking for somewhat of a story. Although I don't consider it a story because I felt like I had a certain gift to play
Yeah.
regardless. And I felt like I was, a pretty good player too.
Yeah.
Um, I was gonna get out there and compete. But I think if you find a situation similar to mine now with a player that's good enough, I think there will be teams that will take a chance. I think back then teams would be reluctant to do it, just, because now I think in the NBA it's more the guys are looking for potential and what's
Yep.
a guy going to be potentially.
Right.
So, but yeah, none of that changed for me. I still had expectations of myself as a player. Nothing changed. It's just only the world knew, and I wanted to become, the best player that I could.
I love it. So, playing overseas 10 or 11 years, I'm sure we could do 5 podcast episodes to just talk about stories from playing overseas, but talk a little about a couple of the years, that really stand out to you, whether it was personal accolades or team, performances, and then also, share a little bit about maybe a couple of the most fun international places you were playing at.
Well, I would say my very first year, man, maybe every year. My very first year over there, and I went to Sweden, and I
Okay.
was in the north of Sweden. Now I'm from Florida, and I played at Florida. So I had been in cold weather before, but this was different.
Yeah.
Complete culture change, just in beliefs, values, the way that people see the world. They live so simple.
Yeah.
Um, and then it's freezing cold, uh, to the point where you have a car in the winter, wherever you park, they have these, I don't know what they call them, but these like meters that you hook your car up to so that the engine doesn't freeze. And if you forget to do it and it's overnight, well, good luck in the morning.
Yeah.
And it also keeps your car warm so that when you turn it on, when you turn the heat on, there's actual
He,
heat. You don't have to wait for the heat to kick in. But like stuff like that, you have to get your tires changed out for the snow weather.
yeah.
Your winter tires and your regular tires. That was all new to me, things like
Right.
that. And we won a championship over there my first year, and the team that I went to was like the biggest club in Sweden, so it was a big tradition. They were used to it's like the Lakers of Sweden.
Yeah.
So, so it's a huge following. Um, that was a great experience. But it was quite different.
Yeah.
Quite different, but it was fun. I had a really good time. My coach was actually American, David Vischer. He was from Florida too. He was from Tampa. Dave was from the Tampa area.
Yeah.
But he had went to Sweden. I guess he met his wife there and just stayed there forever. And he was a coach and he pretty successful too. And then I had this, Russia. I went to Russia the very next year, right? Now that was also quite different. So the part of Russia that I live would be considered Siberia.
Okay.
I was in Perm, 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 Russia. I played for a team called Ural Great, Ural Great. They're now called something else though. They might be called Parma, Parma. But they were one of the bigger teams in Russia and in Europe. We had a great team. But again, the weather, now I'm used to the weather now, but
Yeah.
it's still freezing cold. Now in Russia, it's different, Putin was the president.
Yeah.
Um, it was some wild things going on in Russia while I was there. I had a driver. Um, and I'm from Riviera Beach. And I could drive my own car. No, you cannot. Driving is different. There's snow on the ground most of the time that you're there. There aren't there aren't lanes in the road. They just drive. Eh, Well, however wide the road is, whichever way you're going, you just go. That's what our drivers would do. They drove on the train tracks, all of that stuff. So it was something. It was Russia was something. They actually offered me my passport. I ended up leaving Russia after that year, but the team wanted me to come back for a significantly uh, more money than what I made, which I made. I made a ton of money that year too. But they wanted me to come back, and they also wanted to, work on my Russian passport, which J.R. Holden who played for CSKA Moscow. I don't know if you remember this at all. I think JR is a scout with the Pistons now. He's with somebody. He was with somebody, but JR played for CSKA for a long time, and he got his Russian passport. He played in the Olympics for Russia, but that was something that they were offering me too. But instead, I ended up taking a multi-year deal in Italy.
Gotcha.
But yeah, because the president of my team was also the president of the CSKA Moscow team. Now, CSKA Moscow has taken off to, I don't know how they've been in recent years, but they've taken off to this an elite European team.
Yeah.
Uh, Karolinko played for them. There's a bunch of guys that have come out of there that have went to the NBA. Trajan Langdon, who's actually the GM for the Pistons. Trajan was at CSKA with JR when I was playing with Perm. But that was a great time. And then all my years in Italy were great. Trying to think of, I don't have any really wild stuff. Well, I can talk about, okay, so this happened in Russia. So
Good.
gold in Russia is it's like paramount, right? Like you
Oh,
got a gold bracelet, whatever, gold. So I used to have, I can't remember what kind of chain was it, but it was, but it was thick. I used to wear a gold chain.
yeah.
And in my apartment building, and this is why we had drivers and things like this. So in my apartment building, I lived on the fourth floor. So you take the elevator, you get off, you go through a door, and then it's like almost like a prison cell. You go through a door, and then then when I go through that door, then there's a door to my apartment. But there's also another apartment there too. It was a apartment door. So one day coming from practice, well, the first part of that story is in our locker room, um, there's a lady that used to sit out in front of our locker room just in case. So when we go to practice, nobody can come in,
Yeah.
right? Because it's a probably 8 to 10 minute walk to from the locker room to the arena, well,
Got it.
our practice court.
Yeah.
So somebody tried to, because I wear this chain, somebody came there and they were trying to get in there, right?
Yeah.
So when we come from the practice, oh, that's all we hear is that somebody was trying to come in, and that was it. But she didn't let them, and she had to call like security. I don't know why. I don't think anything of it. So when I get off my elevator one day, the when I walk in the building, it's pitch dark as if the power had went out. So I get in the elevator, go up. Obviously, the power didn't go out.
Yeah. Right.
So I get off the elevator and I make the left to go to try to get to the door that I need to open to get to my apartment. You know how you could feel somebody up on you,
Yep.
right? I felt somebody like coming up behind me. So the guy hits me with like one of the, I don't know, but it felt like one of the little bats they used to make, like a
Oh
little,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know. So I turn around, I throw my keys. I can't see anything, but he takes off running down the stairs. And I go down like one flight, but that was it. So then it's a miracle. I don't know how I found my keys, but I found them immediately, got into my apartment. So then I called my driver who doesn't speak English. So I had to call we had a translator. She was like the secretary. She speaks perfect English. So
Yeah.
she what happened. So they all came back. I'm talking about it was like I don't even want to use the word, but we watched movies about these guys.
Yeah.
But that's who owns all those teams over there.
Yeah.
So it's maybe 15 people. I'm talking about the main people. So they come, they ask me if I could do I don't know what the guy looked like or anything like that. But they come. So from that day forth in Russia, I had a bodyguard. So he would, if I'm in my apartment, he would come up to my apartment, come down with me and sit in the car. And our drivers did the same thing. If I call my driver 4 o'clock in the morning, he's gonna come pick me up. He's gonna pick up the bodyguard. They're gonna come and get me.
Wow.
Fast forward at practice again. I don't know what happened this time, but the person got in and he got my chain. right? So that's what they were after the whole time.
All the time. Yeah.
Now, towards the end of the season, I got my chain back. Now, I'll say this. I do not know what happened. And I asked
Yeah.
because because one of the main guy, the main bodyguard, like the main guy who was ahead of head who was over all of the bodyguards, he spoke English. And I asked him, I say, so you guys find a guy? He was like, yeah. I say, so what happened? He said, you don't want to know. And he left it at that. That's
Uh, but the chain is back. You got it back.
I
Uh,
don't know where it's at right. I don't know. I don't know what I did with it, honestly. Yeah.
that's amazing. I love
Okay.
it.
Yeah, it was that's one, the Russia thing is one that I think about sometimes because I was like, should I have stayed in
Yeah.
Russia? Because the opportunity there was unique.
Yeah. I love it. So after about 11 years overseas playing, you decide to make the transition back to the States, and you end up getting an opportunity to coach at Palm Beach Atlantic. So talk a little about that transition for you, how Palm Beach, ended up being a spot for you to land.
Yeah, a lot of us athletes when we come back, it's like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
Um, and the only reason I stopped playing is because I had my youngest son, he was just born.
Yeah.
And then when at the end of that season, he had turned one. So I come back and it was like, what's next for me is coaching. So and it was, there was an opportunity in my hometown. Um, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. So I reached out to Terry Prim, who was the head coach at Palm Beach Atlantic at the time. And I mean, it was kind of like it was around this time, like in August, which, guys are getting ready to go to school, getting ready to see, but he had an opening and literally it happened like that. So, I mean, I think that was there was some, divine intervention,
Yeah.
it's not as easy for guys like myself if you go overseas and play because you have other guys that they may be the same age that they stay and then they'll be a GA, they'll be a video coordinator, and they work their way up. So when we come back, we look inexperienced from a coaching perspective, which we are.
Yeah.
And most guys our age at that time have been in it 12, 13 years or however
Right.
long. But um, I had to start from the ground floor. And honestly, I wouldn't change that either because it taught me a lot in terms of how to run a team, how to run an organization.
Yeah.
And I had to do every single part of it.
Yes.
I had to drive the van. I had to, you know, order the food and pick up the food. I had to do it all. I had to learn how to do it all. Not just because, in college athletics, it's more than just coaching is a small part of it.
That's right.
Have to know how to do those other things. You have to know how to deal and talk with other sides of administration, how to articulate your needs, how to and just how to deal with every part of the organization. And that's what Palm Beach Atlantic taught me.
Yeah.
And then, Matt McCall got the opportunity at Chat and I was able to make that transition over there.
I love it. So the world of basketball is large and small, and connections end up being, one of the main ways to continue to get to ultimately where a person wants to go. So talk a little bit about the opportunity to move over to Chattanooga.
Yeah, so it's and that's one part you just talked about is connections. And that's one thing that I try to tell young guys that are going overseas and even guys that we've recently had is that don't lose contact with your coaches
Yep.
and the people that you need to continue building your relationships because you're going to stop playing one day. And when that happens, you want people to already know, well, I know such and such is, he's probably going to wrap it up. I want to have a spot for him or
Yep.
be at least be ready to consider them for something. And so that's what I tell those guys. And that's something that I did not do. But part of my psyche in that moment was I told myself, when I go overseas, that's only thing I'm thinking about. And that's my psyche was made that way because I felt like that was my best avenue for success. If I'm thinking about things at home, then I'm gonna go on the court and I'm not gonna be focused in the way that I need to focus to be successful.
Yeah.
But Matt McCall gets the job at Chattanooga when Billy goes to the OKC Thunder. And Matt and I have a mutual friend, Dave McIntosh, who's from West Palm also. Dave played at Florida with Matt's dad.
Okay.
But I knew Matt a little bit because he was a manager at Florida after I left. But also I didn't know this is that Matt used to come to Florida's basketball camps and I was his favorite Gator. I didn't know that till like recently. Uh,
Amazing.
yeah, so he brought, I was fortunate that he allowed me, and hired me on his staff at Chattanooga, and that was my first Division One job, and as a director of operations and everything. And in the second year, I was an assistant coach, and that's kind of where it's been since then.
I love it. Now, getting to, the Power Four now, right? Conferences and talking about that. Uh, you stayed inside the conference, but we're at South Carolina. So, how does that feel to be, coaching some top tier players? How does it feel to be now on the coaching side as you're recruiting, instead of being on the recruiting part?
Yeah, honestly, it feels like home.
Yeah,
Like it feels like being back in the SEC, like it's like I feel like I'm at my rightful place. So familiar with the league and how it operates, and so many people that are involved with the league. I mean, it's a lot of the referees that ref my games
yeah,
that still remember me. Um, but being able to coach these guys at this level and identify the talent at this level, it's been amazing. Um, because you can get on the court and some of the things that you ask guys to do, they can do it. You know, they're ready to do it. And I take nothing away from coaching at Division II and
yeah,
coach mid-major because I tell you, we had some players at Chat
yeah.
like Celio D'Souza, Malachi Smith, David Jean Baptiste, Darius Banks, Casey Hankton. I mean, we had some guys that could play on this level for sure. But just being able to get on the court and take guys to and to help develop guys and that already have a foundation of skill level and ability and all of those things, and then you could just get on the court and start teaching. I mean, that's phenomenal. I think there's also something to be said about when guys don't have a certain foundation or skill level, and then you help them get to a next step. I think
Yeah.
there's a lot to say about that. So I think there's on both sides, but working with these guys and working with like the Gigi Jackson and Colin Murray Boyles and watching those guys go on the court and do what they do is like because sometimes I'm watching those guys and then you have them in practice or in a workout and you're like, I actually didn't know you can do that.
Yeah,
Because they do it at such an elite level, and sometimes they just do it effortlessly. But just it's almost like a like a clay, like clay, and
yeah,
you could mold it into whatever you want with some of these guys because of their ability and they have, a lot of these guys have it all. They got the size, they got the length, they got the talent, they got the ability, they got it also. That was when we first got to South Carolina. That was the thing that stood out to me a lot, you know.
I love it. Now, as we're looking at the season ahead, one changing part of the landscape is, how teams really come together now. And, sometimes rosters are changing with transfer portal where, gosh, last year's team has two players coming back to this year's team. But talk a little about how you guys as a staff bring in, culture quickly, what you're doing to, get guys ready to roll, knowing that, hey, there might be a solid, half of the team that is brand new starting in May, and we got our first tip in November.
Well, that's a good point. And this is our first year actually dealing with, we've had the most turnover this year than we've had,
Yeah.
even so going into our fourth year. But I think to answer that question is as soon as something happens that is not a part of a winning culture, you address it. Tell them
Mm,
it's,
yeah.
hey, we don't do that here. And we have a couple guys that was on the roster last year, but and then they can either support it, but it's like they'll say, yeah, we don't do that. So when you walk away, they'll kind of reiterate, yeah, don't do that. And then they'll start saying other things that we don't allow
Yeah.
or things that we try to do. But as soon as things happen, whether it's in practice, walking through the hall, or if we see it on video, you address it
Yep.
in the group so that if the group's not around, then you address the person. But then when you get in the group, like coach will say, hey, remind me to talk about such and such.
Yep.
That'll be something somebody had did something that we're not too fond of, and then we'll just bring it. Don't say who it is, but we'll address it. But you have to, because culture is about, it's not it's about what you don't address.
Yeah.
If you let guys get away with things, it'd be bad.
Absolutely. I love it. Well, Eddie, I want to say thanks so much for spending time with me today and just sharing your journey. And excited to watch your career continue to progress. And we'll probably be doing this in 3 years. And yeah, hey, maybe you'll still be a South Carolina, maybe you'll be the head coach of somewhere. I don't know, but excited to watch your journey and stay connected, my man.
Man, I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Phil, for having me on. I was thrilled, and it's great to meet you.